RoboHouse Reads. You're listening to the If You Would Use This series that is based on the observation that inventions are often used in ways that are far from what the original inventors envisioned in their labs. So why not learn from this phenomenon and take early-stage robotic inventions from their lab to a randomly selected workplace and then see what happens? This time we look at radioactive sensory robot Christine. Suppose it would venture beyond the hospital into the hospitality industry. Myrte Nowee has investigated this story for us, and she has found that Christine could raise staff spirits while maintaining discipline at the same time. Myrte, what happened when you started investigating this story?
A lot, actually. So at first it was a little bit difficult to find people who are willing to participate on this story. So
at first we thought about bringing this robot Christine to a garbage person.
Yes.
Yeah. Is that a profession? Is that the name for the profession? We don't know. Is it a
no
garbage person, a garbage collector?
Yeah, probably.
So basically the people who walk on the streets and bring takeaway, collect the bins. In which part of the country did you start looking for someone?
In Nijmegen.
What was your strategy at first?
Well, I thought of a lot of things, like you can talk to someone directly, but you can also, of course, talk to the company. I thought it would be nice to just talk to the company at first so they would know that we're dealing with this story. Because even though it isn't about the company, their name will be printed in it. But even though they said that they were interested, it was a bit weird. They said that they didn't have time. And if I said, well, when do you have time? Then it was like, well, never, basically. So I think that they just didn't want to participate. And because the garbage disposal is always organized within a location, it's not that you can go to another factory or another company, because it's just that one facility in that area.
Yeah. So there's kind of a monopoly in a certain area by one company.
Yeah, so eventually I did try to talk to people on the streets, but it also was really difficult because they were like, well, I'm just doing my work here. I don't know anything about robotics, so I probably won't have anything interesting to say.
Yeah, so this is basically one of the challenges that we're trying to face up to, right? Leaving the ivory tower of science and then going to the real messy world of a real profession.
Yeah.
And you're a science journalist, right?
Yes, that's correct.
So is that also a reason why you like science journalism?
Yes, I think people are not aware that science plays such a big impact on our lives, but also the other way around, that the scientists are just driven by curiosity. And sometimes I think they forget what it means in the real world, or could mean in the real world. So I think communication between the two, and not only explaining it to another, but just letting them see what an influence they have on each other, and communication, I think it's really important.
When did you discover that you had a talent for that, right? Because it's not easy. You have to understand the science, but you also have to, like this project, you have to convince people who are maybe not interested at first in science because it's too abstract to think about it.
I've always had an interest in getting to know things. It didn't really matter what kind of things, but just exploring and investigating. And I also understood that when it comes to board games, I really like board games, that it's really difficult sometimes for people to just get to the core, just get to, okay, well, what's the goal of this game? Is it to collect points, or do you have to finish first or something like that? And I discovered that it was really easy for me to just dissect all that noise around it.
So getting to the core of things, you find that you are good at that.
Well, I think.
Yeah.
Of course.
What about Christine, this robot? What is in your mind the essence of it?
Well, first of all, I think for a lot of people it would seem like a cleaning robot. So that's what I mean with getting to the core of it. Like, what makes this different than a cleaning robot? Because it practically does the same. It finds something that is dirty and it cleans it. But then you can look at what's the difference. Instead of just roaming around an area, it's really precise. So it's really looking for where should I clean, and it has a lot of sensors for it. And another thing I think that it really separates is that it will not drive through their own contamination. And that's also something really different from regular robots that just roam around the room, and if they find something they can clean it, but they can also spread it in a broader surface.
Yeah, so for example, like the Roomba, it's an automatic vacuum cleaner, right? It would just roam around the room and maybe not even notice if it's running through something.
Yeah, or where it's been.
Where it's been,
Probably.
and it will just spread around things while it is also cleaning up at the same time.
Especially with mops, I've heard that if you drop something like peanut butter or jelly on the floor, instead of cleaning it, probably you will have jelly over the whole kitchen floor.
And the mop will be forever sticky.
Yeah, probably.
All right, so at some point we decided to leave the whole garbage industry behind us, right?
Yeah.
And then we spun the wheel of fortune again with all the professions on it, and a bartender came out.
Yeah.
But then you found someone who is working in a bar, but who's also a very highly educated molecular biologist.
Well, that was actually by accident. I just went to the bar that I knew. It was a place that is a little bit less crowdy. It has a cozy atmosphere, so I thought it would be better to go there than a really busy area. And that's also because the horeca industry just started again after, I think, a 4-month lockdown. So I thought they will probably have a lot of staff missing, chaos. So I didn't want to go to a high energy place. So then I came to Lux and I asked someone, like I said, I need someone who is creative, a critic, and just open-minded about thinking for this project with me. And then she just said, well, I know a guy. And then I ended up with Yves.
Yeah, so that's a lesson for the people who are listening to this.
Yeah.
If you want to reach out to communities that you're not familiar with or you don't work in, then you have to physically get out of your office, get out of your building, and go places.
Yeah.
Go there.
And of course, you can gather information at first by calling around, and I think that's not a bad idea. Otherwise, maybe you'll end up hopping through the city the whole day without any results. But then I think it's best to just go there.
You'll read the full article. Is there one thing that you want to highlight?
At the end of the article, we have a reflection moment where we take the ideas back into the lab, so to speak. And then I thought it was really nice to complete the circle of this article.
If I remember the video correctly, they say sometimes you forget that others are not engineers. I thought it was really endearing that they said this.
Yeah, I think it really speaks for itself and for the problem we are sometimes facing with combining science and society.
Yeah, so maybe we did a good deed by doing this. Maybe there were about a team of 6 engineers, I think, young engineers. Maybe in the future they'll be working more with also the people in their minds. All right, let's do it. RoboHouse Reads, If You Would Use This, an article by Myrte Nowee.
A radioactive sensory robot. What if you would use this? Innovations are often used in unexpected ways. How would a waiter at Café LUX in Nijmegen put robot Christine to work? In this series, we take robot innovation from their test labs and bring them to a randomly selected workplace in the outside world. This time, we look at a radioactivity sensory robot Christine. Suppose it would venture beyond the hospital into the hospitality industry. We find that Christine could raise staff spirits while maintaining discipline at the same time. Patients are sometimes injected with radioactive fluids as part of diagnostics. When radioactive fluid accidentally gets spilled during this procedure, this can cause a health hazard in the workplace. When cleaned manually, the staff can accidentally spread the contamination even further and over a broader surface. The Reinier de Graaf Hospital in Delft decided to look towards cognitive robots to avoid this health risk. They asked the team Pristine of the TU Delft minor robotics program to automate the cleaning of radioactivity spillage. The diverse team of students worked together for 5 months to build a working prototype. We met the team in January during Demo Day at RoboHouse, where they presented Christine. If a small amount of radioactive fluid is spilled, hospital workers usually know where the contaminant is roughly located, but not exactly, says electrical engineer Floris van Maurik. Therefore, they clean at the estimate location. With a detection device, they will check if radioactivity can still be detected. Our robot can simply be put down in the room, and it will have the spillage sorted in about an hour. To make Christine fulfill its purpose in the hospital, 3 key features were implemented in this first prototype version. Robo Strength 1. Sensors on every wheel. On the bottom of the robot holds a big radioactive sensor. With this, the robot is able to steer itself in the direction where the radiation is strongest. To avoid driving through the radioactive fluid and causing further contamination, Christine has 4 smaller Geiger counters mounted near the wheels. By comparing the measured intensities of the different sensors, the robot can find the exact location of the spillage. Once there, the cleaning process is triggered. Oscar Wameling is a medical engineer and explains, when that happens, the cloth on the bottom of the robot descends to the floor and cleans the spot. Robot Strength 2. Wheels for infinite mobility. Another feature that separates Christine from a regular cleaning robot are its wheels. To avoid driving through spilled liquid with either one of the 4 wheels, the robot has to move around easily. This is why the team chose to use mechanism wheels. Van Maurik grabs a laptop and puts it on the floor to visualize how this works. With regular wheels, you can move only forward and backward, he explains, while moving the laptop in corresponding directions. With the mechanism wheels, we can also move directly to the left and to the right, without making a turn like a car or a shopping cart, adds Mickey Wong, industrial design engineer. It can rotate around its own axis too. Using these wheels, the robot basically has an infinite degree of mobility. The team also implemented a sensor on top of the robot that maps the location and tracks where it has been. As a result, the robot can efficiently reach every location in an area to search for radioactive material. Robot Strength 3. User-friendly interface. The robot is very user-friendly, says Wong, pointing out the colored light system that Christine has for communication with its environment. When the device blinks in green, the operator knows that it has found contamination. Blue tells you the robot is still searching. There are also colors for indicating that Christine is finished or has found a spot but was unable to clean it. For example, when the spillage is located under a cabinet. The prototype of Robot Christine appears promising for health improvement of hospital workers. However, innovations often do not end up where they were once intended to go. So what if we extract this robot from its destined environment and consider its applications in another field of work? This brings us to Yves Snijkers, a waiter at Café LUX in Nijmegen. We ask him, what if you would use this? Yves Snijker is a molecular life science student by day and a waiter at Café LUX by night. The catering facility belongs to the Lux Art House Cinema in Nijmegen, and the ambience is usually casual and welcoming. Most guests come in for a drink or bite after enjoying a movie or a theater performance. There are 2 sides to this job, Yves tells us. On the one hand, as a host, you want to create a cozy atmosphere. On the other hand, you need to work very disciplined to keep the business running. As someone who feels very at home in the hospitality industry, Yves has a clear opinion regarding robots in this working environment. A robot moving through Lux would be a bit weird, he laughs. A bit of a turn-off, perhaps. On the other hand, it would be nice to have a little help sometimes, especially on those days where everything seems to be going wrong. When Yves thinks about it a little longer, he starts to visualize possible purposes for this seemingly specialized robot. Yves' ID 1. Smart after-hours mop. The most obvious new purpose for this robot would be using it as a smart cleaning device after working hours, says Yves. During the day, a robot like this would mostly get in the way of the guests and staff. After closing time, however, the robot would roam free to clean, which could save us some late-night work. Many robotic mops and vacuums do not have smart navigation methods and move quite randomly through an area. Christine's location sensor would make a robot mop that could navigate the more challenging surfaces of a restaurant, like narrow corridors behind the bar or in the kitchen. Avoiding driving through contaminations is also a useful feature. No one wants to find their floor full of smears and streaks in the morning, a common problem with regular cleaning robots. Idea 2. Objective Inspector. Yves thinks Christine could also be used as the hygiene equivalent of a spell checker, searching for dirty areas and marking these. The consequences of an unclean spillage in the hospitality industry are probably a lot less severe than in hospitals, but our hygiene must always meet national standards, says Yves. Therefore, it could be useful to have a device that can objectively check hygiene levels in a cafe or kitchen. In this scenario, the staff can clean manually as usual, put down the robot for an objective check, and then return to areas that fail to meet the hygiene standards according to the robot. Yves' idea 3. Wheels transfer. When we circle back to the specific strengths of the robot, Yves is struck by a new idea. What if we would take the wheels of the robot and put these on our stockroom trolleys? We sometimes need to replenish the stocks in the cafe, but in the way to the warehouse is a real maze, and there are a lot of tight turns, Yves explains. It would be really nice if the wheels of the trolley would move in all directions instead of just back and forth. Following this train of thought, he dissects the robot even further. What about using the robot's mapping ability to plan the layout of the cafe? A while later, even a purpose for the sensors can be found. Not for tracing radioactivity, of course, Yves laughs, but especially during times of COVID, checking the indoor air quality is very important. Yves' new purposes all have one thing in common: helping the staff balance between working disciplined and maintaining a good atmosphere. Where will the robot of Team Christine eventually end up? That's up in the air. She might roam hospital rooms in search of radioactive materials, work as a hygiene inspector, or she may lose some of her parts to upgrade other tools. What do the robot's designers think of these possible futures? We took Yves' idea back to the lab and noted their responses. Luis Alcantara, mechanical engineer, says, "Sometimes there are situations where you kind of forget that not everyone is an engineer. So you only see the part of the story. And when someone shows you the other half, it's always a surprise, but in a very interesting way. Because next time, I guess you'll learn to think about the people who are going to use it."